Greetings, friends. Today you are waiting for really important and hot news. The world gasped, Biden disappeared into the sunset of the political arena. And Donald Trump not only ascended to the top of American power, but also curtsied towards Russia during his fiery speech, in front of a crowd of thousands. But about everything in order, as they say, if you hurry, you will make people laugh. Make yourself comfortable, dear viewers. We are starting our information digest. Donald Trump, the triumphant of the American elections, on the day of his presidential debut, fired a loud statement from the stage, addressing the sea of his enthusiastic supporters. The new head of the United States is undoubtedly one of the brightest and most extraordinary politicians of our time. A man who does not climb into his pocket for a word and always says what he thinks. So this time he did not change himself. He began his speech by criticizing the previous administration of the United States and many European leaders, accusing them of putting the world on the brink of World War III with their actions. Of course, these same leaders congratulated Trump on his victory, but it was clear to everyone that Donald was an extremely inconvenient figure for them. After all, with his actions and loud statements, he is not just distancing himself from the course of his predecessors, but also trying to correct what, in his opinion, led to a real-world catastrophe. Trump openly criticizes the current rhetoric of the European Union, which, in his opinion, only aggravates the situation with its sanctions, hiding behind beautiful words about peace. By the way, it is precisely because of the actions of some EU leaders that the economic situation in such European locomotives as Germany has given a serious crack. Donald promised to turn the situation around 180 degrees and correct the mistakes of his European colleagues. And they seem to understand this, which means they will have to make painful concessions. Trump was equally scathing about his predecessor, Biden, saying, "We have been strengthening other states for years, protecting their borders. Now we are finally going to strengthen the defense capability of our own country. We will protect our citizens." Trump promised that all, as he put it, Biden's stupid orders would be canceled. The vector of US development, according to Trump, will be radically changed and will become a vector not of degradation, as it was, in his opinion, under the last administration, but of prosperity. Trump also said that he has a mission on his shoulders to stop the conflict in Europe and the mess that is happening in the Middle East. "I am close to solving these problems," the newly minted US president stressed, speaking about the conflict in the Middle East. Trump also did not forget to thank his special envoy to the East. "We have achieved more without being in power than they have in 4 years with the president," Trump said, emphasizing his effectiveness. As for the conflict burning in Europe, here Trump, as an experienced politician, no longer throws promises to solve everything in a day, as it was during the election race. Having delved into the essence of the problem, he, as they say, descended from heaven to earth, and realized that this case is much more complicated than it seemed at first glance. Now his assistants are talking about a deadline of 100 days. Nevertheless, in his address, Trump assured that he would make every effort to establish peace in Europe and extinguish this fire of conflict. With Trump coming to power, the meeting of two political heavyweights, Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin, is becoming more and more real. Both leaders have repeatedly openly declared their readiness and desire to sit down at the negotiating table. Trump, in his characteristic manner, stressed that there is no peace to be seen as one's own ears. If Russia is ignored in the negotiation process, dialogue is the key to peace. "We have to talk to them if we really want peace," Trump said. And then, as he knows how, he added a drop of humor, praising the world hockey star, Russian Alexander Ovechkin, who defends the club's logo to the Washington Capitals. Trump's address, of course, took place in Washington, and Donald, thanking everyone present, complimented Ovechkin, saying that Alexander is a player from God. "Isn't that right? This guy is a real hero," Trump exclaimed, and the crowd of thousands exploded with applause. Of course, Ovechkin has long been a universal favorite, not only in Washington, but throughout America. And of course, Trump could not ignore the hype around the TikTok social network, which literally fell out of American life for one day. The social network went offline for a day, but the next day it returned to its users. TikTok publicly expressed gratitude to Trump for helping to preserve the service in America. Today, TikTok is with us again. In the USA, Trump solemnly announced. To be honest, we had no choice. We had to keep it. These are job vacancies, and there are a lot of them. We don't want to give our business to China. We don't want to give our business to anyone, Trump added. Meanwhile, in Europe, as they say, cockroaches were running. The arrival of Trump and his resolute attitude to deal with fairly boring world problems caused a real commotion in European capitals. Trump has unequivocally stated that he has come to extinguish the fires of conflicts. In an interview with CNN, he confirmed that he was already preparing for a serious conversation with President Putin. But before that, as it became known, he held a number of telephone conversations with the leaders of European countries. As soon as Trump took the oath of office, Macron called him, who voiced a number of requests and urged Trump to take into account the opinion of the European Union. About how Trump reacted to such instructions from Macron, it is only known that he skillfully avoided direct answers about conflicts, preferring to listen more and ask clarifying questions. After finishing the conversation with Trump, according to the source, Macron immediately dialed Scholz's number in Germany, which is now, to put it mildly, out of place. The situation in Germany is so difficult that the Chancellor has already managed to dismiss several ministers. So, following a conversation with the German Chancellor, Macron said that France and Germany intend to work on creating a more sovereign Europe. At the same time, the French president did not refuse to cooperate with the United States, but stressed that Paris would firmly defend its interests and values. Panic among European leaders is evident in their every word and tone. Trump's rhetoric is fundamentally different from what they are used to, and this clearly unsettles them. As for the meeting between Trump and Putin, it seems to be only a matter of time. Both leaders are clearly set up for a dialogue. As one well-known politician said, and I fully agree with him, we have nothing against dialogue. Let's restore contacts and have a constructive discussion. Meanwhile, it became known that sanctions have been lifted from a number of Russian banks, including such giants as Sberbank and VTB. The easing will also affect operations related to the extraction, processing, transportation, and purchase of oil, gas, coal, wood, and other fuels in Russia. Many are inclined to see this as the first swallow, believing that this will be followed by other steps to lift sanctions against Russia. However, the Kremlin, apparently, is not inclined to excessive optimism. Presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the Kremlin has no illusions about the imminent lifting of sanctions. However, American political scientist Malik Dudikov expressed the opinion that with the arrival of Trump, it is quite possible to lift excessive sanctions that prevent the United States itself from trading with Russia in areas where this trade still persists. According to him, it is possible to remove restrictions from banks that carry out transactions with Western partners. And if the negotiations on the settlement of the conflict in Europe succeed, then, as experts say, we can expect the lifting of other restrictions. The situation is developing dynamically and undoubtedly deserves the closest attention. More and more countries are ready to provide their territory as a negotiating platform to end the conflict. Slovakia and Switzerland are among the last to express such readiness. And today, literally out of the blue, Mike Waltz, one of Trump's key aides, made a statement. He confirmed that preparations for the negotiations are already in full swing. President Trump is convinced that it is impossible to reach an agreement without dialogue, without establishing relations with the other side. This is exactly what we will be actively working on in the coming months, Waltz said. Another influential person from Trump's entourage, Keith Clark, stressed in an interview with Fox News that Trump intends to put an end to the conflict as soon as possible. I am sure that the parties will come to a mutually acceptable solution in the very near future. By the nearest time, I personally understand a period of 100 days, said Clark. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, answering journalist questions on January 9th, noted that Trump has already managed to prove himself as a politician capable of combining diplomacy with firmness, and expressed confidence that his efforts will bear fruit. Unlike Biden, Trump is ready for a direct dialogue with Russia, and this is the main difference in his approach to diplomacy so far. Expert Dmitry Suslov notes. According to him, Trump will insist on a ceasefire, and after that he is ready to start an expanded negotiation process. Will Trump increase or change the sanctions pressure, especially with regard to Russia? This is the number one issue today, the expert continues. The problem with sanctions is that they, and I say this as a person who applied them himself, kill the dollar and everything that it represents. It would be tantamount to our own defeat. We risk becoming a third world country. And we can't allow that. Here are the news, dear viewers of our channel. And what are your thoughts on this? Share your opinion in the comments. And don't forget to put your thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube and Telegram channels.